Hello, everybody. My name is Caroline Enright, and I manage our marketing communications here in DCU Business School. Thanks a million for being with us. The last time we had this session, we had a session like this last week, and it was a glorious sunny evening. So it's not so glorious here in Dublin this evening. It's quite grey and a little bit wet out there where I am. So hopefully you'll have good reason to stick with us for the next 45 minutes or so, and you won't be too tempted to get out for a lovely sunny walk or anything like that. So thanks a million for being here. This session really is all about you. It's all about the audience that's here and is tuned in this evening, and it's an opportunity for you to learn from our expert panelists who are current students with us here on our executive part-time masters, and one has done a full-time program with us as well here in DCU Business School. But it's an opportunity for you to really learn from people that are probably in a similar enough life situation, oftentimes trying to balance work with life commitments, with also undertaking a master's course, which is no small achievement in itself. So we're going to structure our session really in a kind of a Q&A format. We'll keep talking away ourselves, but this really is an opportunity for people that have tuned in to ask all of those questions that are on the top of your minds. Please put those into the Q&A. As you can see, the session is recording, so we'll send that around afterwards, but we really want to hear from you, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have live on the line over the next while. So we'll try and keep it to about 45 minutes, but we'll see how we get on. The last time we did one of these, we went through to the full hour. So we'll see how things go. So I'm going to start off by asking the panel of speakers here just to introduce themselves. First of all, I'm going to start with Aileen, who's the first on my screen. How are you, Aileen?
Perfect. Hi, everybody. So my name is Aileen Ryan. I have just completed the part-time masters in investment, treasury and banking. Although my dissertation is still pending, so hopefully I'll be finished in a few weeks. I joined the Central Bank of Ireland straight out of my undergraduate studies in 2018. I work specifically in the area of policy and regulation for the Irish and wider European banking sector. I guess one of the reasons why I chose DCU Business School and specifically the Investment, Treasury and Banking Masters was that the content was very relatable to my work and provides me with extremely transferable technical knowledge across different areas. All of the lecturers within the course who were selected bring excellent industry experience in their respective fields, and they were all super approachable throughout my time on the MITB. In addition, we had some guest speakers who came in to speak from the likes of the NTMA, and in fact we presented to Eamon Crowley, who's the CEO of Permanent TSB, within one modules. Specifically, we were speaking to him on the challenges that Permanent TSB faced. That was quite daunting. So in general, the masters would have used a mixture of presentations, case studies, in-class exams, assignments, both group and individual, and then of course we had the dreaded final exams. So there are 3 modules per semester, and then the dissertation was an additional module for the final 2 semesters. Our lectures were held on a Wednesday evening after work, and then on a Saturday morning from about 8:30 to 1:30. So there was minimal disruption to my work life per se.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks a million to that for your intro, both to yourself and to the Investment, Treasury and Banking course itself. Going in order, the next person that I see is Laura, who studied our Aviation Management course. I think you did it full-time, Laura, right? But that course is also available part-time.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura. So I actually did an undergraduate in finance when I left school. I didn't go straight into flying. And then from that, I actually went straight into my flying career. So I did my flight training and joined Ryanair for 3 years. I worked there as an airline pilot, and I'm currently in Aer Lingus. So just with everything obviously going on in the last 18 months or so of COVID, there hasn't been a lot of work, and this master's program was something I've been interested in doing at some stage. I just didn't think it would be quite so soon. So last year I decided to take on the full-time course, which was a challenge in itself, but I really enjoyed it. There's a different aspect. I think the main reason I chose this was I wanted to see a different side of the industry. So obviously we're quite on our own, doing our own thing day to day. We don't see the background staff or what's going on in the background. So that was something that really interested me, the business side and also the leadership aspect of it as well.
So you're focused on keeping the airplane in the air.
Yeah.
And now you're getting that kind of business and management element, I suppose, to your career in aviation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially the leadership side of things as well. So.
And are you still flying a bit, or have you been pretty much the past year?
Yeah, we've been pretty much grounded for the last year, but just in the last couple of weeks, it started to pick up, which is good. It's good to see. So
it's fantastic to see the sector hopefully getting on its feet.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But it just worked out perfect timing. It was the full-time course was intense, but it's been good timing there's been a couple of us that did it, so that was good as well.
So you're an example of, I suppose, a carpe diem type of student who's going, okay, now's the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Got that window in my career.
I think people kind of thought I was a bit mad staying within the industry, but I just figured that it was bettering myself for the next couple of years, hopefully. So.
Yeah, and if it's a sector that you love, it's hard to walk for what is hopefully going to be temporary challenge to business as usual for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well look, we'll keep going. Lorcan, I'm wearing red and white today. It does not mean that I'm a Cork fan. I'll also not say that I'm not a Cork fan, but that is accidental and not on purpose.
It suits you, and those colours suit you, Carly.
Thanks for Lorcan. Okay, so Lorcan, over to you, please.
Yeah, so hi guys, Lorcan McLaughlin. I'm a current DCU MBA student. I'm actually a DCU GPA scholarship recipient also. So I'm currently working in the health and safety industry, I suppose in various roles such as sales, but I oversee a department which is our traffic management, which is road safety. So currently within the MBA program, I'm also a class representative, and I'd have been involved in projects such as a fundraiser for Focus Ireland, which we raised over €5,000. So that was a significant fundraiser. Just in relation to the MBA itself, I suppose it's been, similar to the other guys there, a lot of the course content is transferable to my current role within the health and safety industry, especially, with the impact of COVID-19 and how that has affected businesses. So a lot of that, we've shared a lot of knowledge with managers from various industries, and the diversity within the MBA group, I think has helped me personally, but and those skills, and I suppose that knowledge has been transferable within my current position. So a hugely positive experience, challenging also, and I think the word that comes to mind is resilience. I think in the face of COVID-19, we're all facing challenges, and then to be completing an MBA online, that word resilience keeps coming up, and I think that we've all been tested in this environment, so it's been hugely beneficial from my perspective, and and that's credit to all the staff at DCU and I suppose my colleagues also.
Okay, that's great, Lorcan. Thanks a million. No doubt we'll revert to the MBA again in due course, and we may even have some Gaelic Player Association members on the line today. I don't know, but great if we do have a few. So our last panelist that we want to get to is Nuala O'Hagan, who has done the Masters in Work and Organisational Psychology. Sorry, is currently still doing it, right, Nuala?
Still doing it. I'm not there yet.
Still doing it. Not finished quite yet, but
not yet. So
lovely to have you here this evening.
Thank you. Yeah. Hiya, I'm Nuala. So yeah, part-time 2-year Masters in Work and Organisational Psychology and Behaviour. So I struggle to explain what my job is. I work in financial services, but my job, I have a funny title, I'm a ways of working coach. So really, I'm in an organisation who want to relentlessly improve everything they do. And you need people to kind of lead that charge, whether it's training people in improvement methodologies or coaching leadership teams. And I've been there for about 10 years. And with my kind of work, you can get very far with kind of logic and tools, but you get to a point where you're really getting down to people's motivations and their deep engagement and their sense of their self-awareness and how leadership lead. And I got to the point where I need to understand people better and how they tick and how that translates into workplaces. And that kind of led me towards this course, because I'm a scientist originally of microbiology, so I can tell you everything you don't want to know about that thing we're not talking about. But I guess the scientist in me kind of woke up going, you know, what makes people tick, and why do some people get motivated by some things and it turns other people off? And how does that turn up in the workplace? And there has to be something we can do. And I think what this course really does is it's training us to be able to look at organizations like that, look at them through a people lens, not through the strategy lens, but through what makes a good workplace? How do we design good workplaces that are interesting and engaging and allow people to develop? Because we all know people are the best asset, but how do you go about doing that? And how do you go about making it a great place to work? And that's really what this course is allowing you to do, to sort of peek in under the covers and apply theory and research to sort of saying, well, these things should work. And then how do you apply them in the real world? I think what I really love as well is there's a practical element. So we're knee deep in theories and models like everybody else, but then the lecture's like, right, now go apply that. Here's your case study. Go tell me what you're going to do. No, you're not allowed to spend 30,000 on consultants. I need you to find 3 free things that can get done in the next month. So it's very practical that way. And I found that in DCU, bring it right back to real life. And what that means is you come out of every lecture realistically with probably at least one practical idea of something you could go off and do, or a conversation you could have. So it has sort of real-time benefits.
Yeah, that sounds really super. Okay, all right. Well, thanks a million for that, Nuala. We'll just to say, so obviously for people that are tuning in, you know, we've got representatives from 4 of our part-time, our executive master's programs here with us. Well, 3 masters and 1 MBA. So like many of you will probably at this point know which type of course you're interested in. So please do feel free in the Q&A or in the chat to ask course specific queries. I won't know the answer, but the rest of our panelists will have great insights to share with you. So we'll kind of keep talking about broad topics to do with going back to study a master's when you're kind of out in the world working or not. But if you've got course specific queries, be sure to fire them into the chat. Okay, so the first thing that we'll talk about is just around the courses themselves. And Nuala, I might start with you, because when we were doing our prep call, you mentioned this as an important point for someone who's thinking about going back to college and maybe has been out of college a little while, is kind of reacclimatizing to learning and learning how to learn maybe academically again. So have you got anything that you'd like to kind of share with our audience about that?
Yeah, I guess there's been a solid 20-year gap between my last academic burst and this one. And I was sort of saying on the planning call, like the world has changed. We didn't have technology 20 years ago. Journals were in paper in a library. And now the whole world is sort of technology has caught up. So I think for me, it was, I had to learn how you access information these days, and it's better than it was. You don't have to trek to the library, you can do it virtually. So that was one thing, and sort of familiarizing yourself with how to go searching. And the second thing was remembering or learning how to read. If you're on master's courses, you know, the idea is you're not being spoon-fed. It's not undergraduate anymore where you can kind of go learn the concept from a textbook. You're expected to engage with original material, so original articles, and you have to sort of get your head around how to start reading those. And one of the things I suppose is that, you know, it takes a little bit of practice. And at the beginning, you're not supposed to be able to understand every word. It's about giving yourself a burst of time and say, I'm going to get the gist of this argument in 20 minutes. But to make sure that you give yourself a bit of space to get into that rhythm, because probably in day-to-day life, we don't really have to digest the originals, but we are expected to here. So it's just around kind of reorientating yourself there. It's absolutely doable. It just takes a little bit of a focus.
So that maybe we're used to getting the Cliff Notes version of things, or the 3 bullet points version, but that maybe in going back to a master's, you do actually have to originally go back to source with your academic journals, and you have to develop that skill of learning how to read those and extrapolate the interesting, well, it's all interesting, right? But the parts that you're actually going to use for your course. Yeah,
I would say don't panic as well. I mean, the articles could seem a little bit intimidating if you haven't done it in a while, but you know, you always can extract. You can always give yourself that challenge. I'm going to have 20 minutes. I'm going to extract what's the main argument that the author is trying to make here. You know, and that's the steppy way into it.
Okay, great. Well, from the rest of our panelists, anything else? Any other top tips around learning and reacclimatizing yourselves to learning that you'd like to share with our audience here today?
Yeah, I think just to touch on what Nuala said there as well, there's some good resources at DCU too, which I found really helpful. Because it's about 10 years since I have done anything academically like this in this sense. And in our role, it's very much, there's a right and wrong. There's no kind of, you make your own, what you think is right. So I found that really difficult at the start, but I used the writing school in the library a few times, and Another thing I found really useful, it was quite difficult, well, it wasn't quite difficult because you didn't know any different, but we did all of the course online, but just having a few people to bounce ideas off, and what you might think you're on the right road with one question, someone else might steer you in a different direction. So I think use the resources in DCU and also classmates as well. And
lean
just
on your
give you a good
classmates to
steer.
learn.
Yeah, rather than waiting till the very end till you have something done and then go, oh crap, well, I had a different idea what they were looking for there. So
kind of keep in contact. And I know it's been a strange year for everyone who's on our panel today in terms of the year that you learned in. But I suppose under normal circumstances, you're sitting in a classroom with these people and you're able to share ideas. But that, I suppose, what you're saying, Laura, is you probably had to work harder, did you, to do that over the
yeah, I think so.
maybe?
Yeah. And one of the biggest things I found as well was going back to Harvard referencing and trying to teach myself that. And sometimes when you try and teach yourself something like that, you have a different idea of what's right than somebody else. So there's been, guys have said, oh, actually, I think that's wrong or whatever. So you definitely learn from other people as well.
Yeah, or even content formats maybe that are here that like 10 years back or whatever, they wouldn't, like how to reference a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that, when like certainly when I was learning back in the day, they wouldn't have been around in order to know how to do your Harvard referencing style for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Aileen, you looked like you had something to say on this matter too.
Yeah, I just to touch on that point that Laura made, particularly I found that having a good group within the investment treasury and banking masters was really, really important, because primarily the majority of my first year was kind of in physical format, but then pretty much my whole second year was completely virtual. So at points it became a bit isolating. I would say sometimes it's just kind of yourself at your desk, and sometimes you can really doubt yourself. So it's really, really valuable to have a good group within the masters, just to have that sort of sense of kind of camaraderie and like that, being able to bounce things off them. And then also it helps having a good group, because when you are doing group assignments, you're comfortable with the fact that their work ethic is the same as yourself.
Sense of, I suppose, you all being in it together and leaning on one another as a resource really seems to kind of strike deep from what you guys are saying.
Yeah, and particularly because like your family and your friends, because they're not really in it, like they can only hear so much, whereas when you're speaking to someone who actually is doing the same thing as you get a lot more out of that. A lot more support.
Yeah, I can imagine those evenings during lockdown with the WhatsApp flying with the anyone know how to do this particular type of citation or whatever it might be. Anyway, Lorcan, I think you had something that you wanted to contribute on that too.
Yeah, no, I suppose just to touch on, I suppose, theories and frameworks that you'd get from, we'll say, scientific literature. Then I suppose the debate inside in the classrooms is excellent then as well, whereas, you have those discussions within the classroom. So reading the articles prior to the class and then having that discussion and debate and actually challenging those frameworks, I found hugely beneficial. So, and that online, I suppose, that online dimension as well has allowed constant communication as well, so access to that knowledge as well.
Okay. So it sounds like in synopsis, I suppose, from the four of you, that it's quite an applied learning environment, maybe, like, that it's not sort of just read it and write an essay. It's very much kind of discussion based, and it's about that classroom dynamic to kind of bring the readings to life, maybe.
And I think I'm not that long out from doing my undergraduate studies, and I did it in business studies as well. So there is such a step up in what you're expected to do. Like within an undergraduate, it's very much kind of, well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but for business studies, I found for a good bit was you just kind of regurgitated the text, whereas with this, you really have to think very deeply about what you're saying and really try to get to the crux of the issues. So it is definitely a step up. but that comes, I think that comes as you progress through the masters.
So step up in terms of difficulty, because obviously your course, I assume, has a bit of a quantitative element to it.
Yeah,
I assume, but I suppose so. Step up in terms of difficulty, or kind of how you learn. How would you describe it?
That's a tricky question. A step up in difficulty, definitely. Because yes, I think it's out of the 12 modules that I do, I'd say a solid half of them are quantitative in nature.
Okay.
But then for the other kind of the more theoretical subjects, it's just you really have to understand what you're talking about. You can't just like blankly regurgitate what you've learned within an exam setting. You have to provide your own opinion and frame it in a way of, well, what have I learned, but how does this impact on how does this impact on my opinion of it? Like it's a much deeper response that you would need to provide,
or level of analysis.
Yeah,
it's critical analysis, really. I was thinking what Laura said. I'm really glad, Laura, you don't get to decide how you're going to fly the plane. That makes me feel a whole lot better. But it is that idea. I was trying to describe this to a colleague. You know, you've got a theory or a model or a framework. Then you have research that either backs that up or says, yeah, it's true some of the time. And then you have real life. You have your own experience, and even richer, you have your classmates. You know, we'd have people from non-profit, big corporates, self-employed, and, you know, we could play bingo, the self-employed person would say, that is rubbish. You know, that doesn't work in real life. And someone who's on maybe brainwashed by corporate culture saying it does here, you know. And I think what you're being asked to do is you're being asked to take the idea, the research that backs it up or rubbishes it, yours and the group's collective experience, smush it all together and say, so what does that mean?
Okay.
And that's the skill I think that we're being asked to do. So you take something and say, the theory says X, the research backs that up, my organization, this bit's working well, that bit's not. And actually, yeah, the theory says that we should pay attention to that gap, and I would tend to agree, or not. And have the courage of your convictions, like Laura said, but you need to back up your conviction. You can't just say, I think we should do. It's backing up your sense of what should happen with what's there, but not being also afraid to disagree, saying that theory seemed to be fine, but, you know, it doesn't seem to bear up. And I think it's pulling those two together, and that is a bit of a debate. And I think that's another case, like where Aileen was saying, you can bounce this around with your classmates and say, well, maybe the answer is it's nuanced. It depends.
Yeah. And then through your own research, move along the research that's already been done, right? With your own, with your own thesis and based on all of those three elements that you described probably coming together. The diversity of the classroom is something that you kind of talked about there, all the different kind of professional backgrounds that are in there. And Lorcan, I'm assuming it's maybe quite similar in the MBA in that lots of people come from lots of different backgrounds. Aileen and Laura, possibly slightly different because yours are maybe a bit more industry specific, but I'll let you come in on that for a sec, but we might start with Lorcan on that point.
Yeah, so again, I suppose just going back to my point that you get, I suppose, the frameworks, the theory from the academic side of it, but then you get that real practical insights into corporate culture and, you know, self-employed people. So there is a diverse range of, I suppose, personnel on the course, and there's like you can challenge all those frameworks and theories then, and you kind of put yourself in a different situation or look at it from a different perspective. And I think that knowledge sharing is incredible then from a practical point of view. And each day then you're learning as much from your peers as you are from lecturers and the academic the scientific evidence, I suppose.
Okay. Aileen or Laura, anything that you'd like to add from that? I appreciate yours are, because they're industry specific, maybe a little different, but perhaps not, if there's anything that you'd like to add on it.
Yeah, ours is obviously very industry specific, but there were so many different sides of it and elements that I would never get an opportunity to talk to those people, like air traffic controllers. There was people that worked in the IEA and the regulation side of things, cabin crew members, management, pilots, like all that side of things, which we'd never pass on a day-to-day basis. So it was very interesting to hear their stories. And I think to back up what I was saying in the first point as well, some of the conversations that I had with them may have helped me with some assignment ideas. Like that's what I found I benefited from that was, you know, you'd have a conversation with someone and go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's actually a good point, and that's something I want to look at myself. And so I definitely found that beneficial, because I don't get an opportunity to meet them any other way. So
yeah, that's such an interesting point. Like, I'm just thinking about you as a pilot with a very specific function within the industry, and actually all those other professions you described also have a very specific role to play. So there must be great synergy when a regulator, an air traffic controller,
yeah,
cabin crew, people that are doing the scheduling and all the kind of ops side of your industry, when you're all in a room together, that must be brilliant.
yeah, I think we proved the point that you can definitely get over the barrier of communication with Zoom anyway. That was for sure.
You're doing a different type of Zooming when you're in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
That you've done to the type that you've done in the past, in the past year during your master's. Okay, so we might just go over to kind of work-life balance. Okay, so we've talked a fair bit about learning and how you learn, and re-oiling the machine of learning after a couple of years out from doing kind of formal, structured academic learning. But let's just go over to life, because life continues while you're doing a master's, and you know, whether you're working or not working, or whether you're family or not family, like I suppose most of our people that are doing a part-time master's have lots going on in their life outside of studying. So I'll just go around the virtual room here. I'll start with Aileen around, I suppose, any tips you had on that, maybe in terms of balancing work and life, and keeping all of those balls juggling.
Yeah, like it definitely is tricky. It's not an easy time. You have to be very, very organized, and really use your time very effectively. I think the first year for me, kind of the way that the master's in investment treasury banking is kind of structured, that as you progress through the semesters, the modules are really building upon each other. So say, for example, you have corporate finance in the first semester, and then the next semester it's theory of finance. So it's really building. So I found that the first year probably wasn't as demanding, but when there was definitely a step up for the second year, because not only did you have your 6 modules that you completed, you also have your dissertation to be thinking about. You're required to submit certain aspects at different points. So it is very, very tricky, very demanding. I would say that whenever I had a spare minute in work, I was trying to do bits of assignments, and then also I would set aside, so I'd kind of have like a schedule that I would try to stick to. Now, obviously that's not always feasible, that I would do like 2 hours before I start work, or I did 2 hours after I finished work. That wouldn't be every day, because that's just not feasible. Like, you burn yourself out, and you can't do that, because you still have to then sit exams at the end of it. This is from my experience. So yeah, just being really, really organized, and sometimes saying no to those drinks that you want to go to, but it has to be done.
Those virtual Zoom drinks, of course, at the time.
Yeah, those virtual.
Although I know the first year of your master's was
regular teaching in person, but yeah, it's challenging, but you get there in the end, and it's like, I'm at the end of it now. Obviously, I know my dissertation to finish, but like, God, the relief when it's done, and it feels good, like you're done, and you've accomplished something great over the last few years.
So your tip then in synopsis is probably mind yourself, but make best available use of time that you have.
Yeah.
Be structured and planned.
Yeah, really, like, as in every week I would, and look, you don't always follow this, but for the most part, you have to decide what you're doing within the week. You have to decide what you're doing in those 2 hours, because you don't have the time to be kind of faffing around. What will I look at today? You have to have that decided, and you just stick to it.
And you also probably, like, if you're provided with a reading list of 30 journal articles, you probably need to be like, well, I'll get to 5.
Yeah.
I won't get to 30.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, you tell me, you're the experts. I assume it's kind of fair enough, you know, because you can't do 30 probably. Nuala, you're unmuted there, so I think you want to come in at this point.
Yeah, I guess I think for me, it's really important to accept that things have to change for this period of time, and it's not forever. You know, for me, it's 20 months with a bit of a break in the summer. And you can't do everything you were doing before and do this. Something has to give, and I think you need to make peace with that yourself.
Yeah.
And then you need to have those conversations with your workplace, depending on how they can accommodate you, and with whatever your home life is. So we have 2 full-time parents, 2 children, or two full-time jobs, 2 children. So we had to have those conversations. And like personally at home, we had to rebalance the workload, and I had to be okay with that, and I had to be okay with, I'm not doing the bedtime, so just 2 evenings. So I think to Aileen's point, get yourself into a rhythm of certain days, and those are your days if you can, and try to make sure you have guaranteed time off as well. You know, you need the breaks. If you end up doing a bit 7 days a week, you'll burn yourself out. And then for, like Aileen said about being super organized, if you spend the first 15 minutes of your 2-hour session faffing about figuring out what you're going to do, you know, I fairly quickly realized the sort of tired tasks, things like downloading the papers, figuring out what I'm going to do in what order. If I'm really wrecked one evening, I'll just do that. So at least I'm ready then. And I know before I dial off that tomorrow in my proper study session, my first half hour is paper 1. And the other thing that I just thought was brilliant in terms of time management was there's this thing called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro just means tomato, but it's this idea that you set a fixed burst of time. For me, it was about 25 minutes. And I'm going to say, I'm going to get that paper sorted. I'm going to read it in 25 minutes. I've only got 25 minutes. And when you're up against it, you just make yourself do it, rather than saying, I'll just read this paper and take so long it'll take.
Well, it takes 25 minutes because you've got 25 minutes.
That's all you can do, you know, and you can only do the best you can. And no, you won't get through all 30 papers. But if you get through the 3 mandatory readings each, you know, and you've done that, well, then at least you feel like you've achieved, as opposed to 2 hours later, you're not quite sure what you did.
I feel like we need to get no faffing printed on a t-shirt with Executive DCU MBA Masters written underneath it. It seems like it's the ultimate tip in trying to make all of this work. But I think your point there as well is probably like, if yours was synopsized, it would probably be, well, something's got to give, but take a long-term view on it. Like this is a 2-year thing. It's not a for life thing.
And it's worth it. It's hard and it's good. So it's hard and it's good. Yeah. Lorcan, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, no, I suppose I completed a postgraduate degree as a full-time student back in 2014, and this is just a different level altogether. You know, the challenge with time management is, you know, was probably my biggest obstacle, you know, and the first couple of weeks was definitely overwhelming. But then when you start getting disciplined and you plan out your week and you plan out what needs to be done, I think, and there's discipline in that as well, but you also need a good support network around you, that people around you understand what you've taken on, be it work, be it family, and then they begin to realize, you know, the commitment that you've taken on, and they begin to understanding that you're under additional pressure, additional stress. You have, look, there's times when work has to be the priority, and then coming up to assignments and exams, that has to take the priority. And look, once you're given that bit of breathing space, I think you make it work. And that's where I think the resilience comes through. And I think throughout the duration of the course, that's what's being developed, is that resilience.
Okay. So it sounds like kind of peaks and troughs, maybe, you know, that there are times when, well, I'm coming up to exams, that has to have my focus, and likewise, you're going to have busy spells and work where that just has to be number one. Yeah. Okay. And Laura, anything from your perspective that you'd add to this?
Yeah, it was quite different for me. So I didn't really have much of a work to be balancing just with the year that was in it. But I think Aileen mentioned at the start there, one thing that people said to us at the start was just start writing. As soon as you get assignments, just start into them, which I didn't really take on board for the first few months. And then I realized after how important it was. So it is true, like just start into anything, even if it's just small 20 minutes here and there, and have a plan and try it. What I found was if I set a goal for a week rather than a specific day and just say to myself, oh, I'll try and get this done within the week. That was one thing. And then the other thing I was thinking of there, I just found as well, particularly with meetings with groups, try and have a timekeeper, because I found you could plan a meeting for an hour and 2 hours later you might not have even got through what you were supposed to get through, and then it leads on to another day or another meeting. So Yeah.
That's a very good point. I think that's a general business and
Yeah.
organization in work kind of a point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. Like, you know,
track.
it was just we were getting on and chatting and stuff, but there is a job to be done as well. So
yeah,
just keep that in mind.
Okay, so have that little virtual ticking clock at the back of your meetings, trying to get through things.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of support from your organization, does anybody have kind of a view on that? Like, you know, navigating those conversations maybe with work around doing a master's, because I know that'll be usually something that people will think about, like how to kind of set those limits that you need or those boundaries for, well, you know, my MBA takes place on a Thursday afternoon, so I'll need Thursday afternoons off now. Like any tips in general, any of you that you have around having those conversations?
I know when I was thinking of doing it, I had a conversation, even though I didn't really know what way the year was going to go. I just wanted to make sure that committing to a full-time master's was going to be the right idea. And yeah, I found they were very accommodating. They just said, you know, once you get your schedule, we'll work around that within reason, obviously, which was good. So I think ask anyway, it's no harm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm extremely lucky that my organization really, really promotes this sort of additional learning. However, I was, you know, very kind of clear with my line manager. These are and kind of from very early on, I was very open with her that these are the times that I'm going to need off. I know obviously you can't plan that, but like you'd have a rough idea when exams are on. Provisionally, I would just say, look, provisionally, I need these weeks off. It may change. And then, you know, if it got very busy at certain points and I needed to take a day here and there to finish off assignments, luckily, you know, I had a manager that was very accommodating. But I think just really being clear and open with what's going on is really important.
So good communication.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Nuala, you've probably seen, or you may not have, there's a question there about the Masters in Work and Organisational Psychology.
Okay, is there one or more assignments per subject to the written exam?
The chat, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so in the first year there were 4 modules, so 2 modules in each semester. So for instance, semester 1 was kind of Organisational Psychology 101 and strategy. And my experience so far has been there's usually more than one assignment per subject. So far the pattern has typically been a group assignment, which has been usually worth around 30% of the marks for that module. And that's usually a presentation, and then a written assignment. We've had no exams as such at all. Our course doesn't seem to be structured around exams. So that the balance has typically been kind of 70-30 written assignment and group assignment. Group assignments have been due during the term, usually smack bang in the, or sorry, semester, I'm old school, smack bang in the middle, and written assignments are afterwards. So what I would say is there is a build-up of work during semester, particularly as you fall a bit behind and you're reading. You get your group assignment out of the way, and then at the end of teaching weeks, there's usually, so far, usually at least a fortnight before any assignment is due. So you do have time with no other classwork to do to finish them off. But there's a lot of emphasis on written ones, but equally we gave 3 presentations, I think, in first year. Okay, great.
That question was specific to the Masters in Work and Organisational Psychology, but as a general question to everybody else here, would that be kind of typical of your course, that it's more about continuous assessment maybe, and presentations and written papers rather than exams? Although Aileen, it sounds like you had a number of exams.
No, to be honest, ours is very exam heavy at the end. I think generally the weighting was 75% exam, 25% some sort of group assignment, some sort of continuous assessment. That wasn't the case for all of them, but that is the majority rule for the MITB. And yeah, just to add to a point that Laura made a while ago, on that, when you get an assignment, to start it immediately, I would recommend not leaving all of the content to study during that very stressful period, in the 2 weeks before your exams. Just tip away at things as the semester goes on, because it gets very stressful at the end.
Yeah, I think people underestimate that sometimes.
Yeah.
You probably get a false sense of security, I'd imagine, when you're tuning in and you're present and you're at your lectures, but then you forget that, well, no, it all has to come together at some point, and that's in the form of an exam. And I would imagine things get fairly stressful towards the end if you haven't kept on top of your work.
And I think particularly because we weren't there in physical form, you were kind of like, oh, this is grand, you know, and then you're like, oh God, all of my deadlines are here and I've studied. So yeah, no, just I think that's one big thing. Always, it's a slow process, but yeah, don't leave it all to the end.
Okay, good advice, I think. Laura or Lorcan, you don't have to put a comment on it, but if you have anything you'd like to say on that, far away.
Similar to Nuala as well, I suppose we'd one exam, I think, over both semesters. It was all continuous assessment then with group presentations, and kind of the breakdown was 30-70 with a 70% individual assignment then as well, so similar to Nuala.
Okay.
And we just briefly, I'll step in there. It was a full-time course, so there was probably a bit more, it was a bit heavy on assignments after Christmas, but we only had one exam, so it was more so continuous assessment, a couple of group presentations and teamwork, and then I've actually chosen to do a practicum now instead of a dissertation, so that's also another group project, which is great.
Yeah, that's great to have that kind of applied element, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's great. We've got another question here. Sorry, I'm trying to prioritize getting to the questions, and it's brilliant to see them coming in. Guys, we hope to finish up in the next couple of minutes here, so please keep going with putting your questions in. So this is for Nuala as well. So for work and organisational psychology, just any comment on, I suppose, so this is kind of a specific admissions query, which I'll address, but Nuala, you might come in about the dynamic in the class. Do you need to have relevant work experience / be working in that career, or do students' careers vary? Nuala, I'm sure you can talk about the kind of different people that are in your class.
Yeah, hugely varied. So I think the intention is that some people have psychology degrees coming in, and when we're put into groups, they aim to have at least one psychology grad in each group, and that's really to help the rest of us demystify some of those basic psychology terms. But the backgrounds are huge. We have people from the guards and from charities and from corporates, and loads of people have none of this type of experience before. Lots are not necessarily in leadership positions. So it's very broad. You do need to have a certain amount of work experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be particularly relevant to this area. Yeah,
so there are two strands on that course. One of them is, as Nuala describes, where it's designed for people that have done an undergrad in psychology and want to specialize further in organizational or work psychology. But then there's also a strand that enables people that haven't graduated in those disciplines to participate in the course. So I'm sure you've already looked at the website to look at the actual admissions criteria in terms of what you need academically and what you need to provide for your application, and get in touch with us if you've got any questions about that. But I think what Nuala's described there is a good sense of kind of the mix of people's profiles that do that class. So somebody asking here about virtual lessons for 2021 for much longer. So we actually have guidance on that on our website, which I think you should find fairly easily on our postgraduate hub. If you head over to dcu.ie and you go into the postgraduate hub section, you should be able to find that advice. Again, come back to us if you haven't, if you're not able to find it, and we can help further with that. So the plan at the moment is absolutely that we go back to in classroom teaching. Now, like, that might vary a little bit in courses and stuff. So like there is, I suppose it's all being decided now, to what extent should elements of it maybe be online occasionally. And as well, it's hard to kind of plan for how undergraduate courses might look versus postgraduate courses. But postgraduate courses, generally, there aren't as many people in them. They're smaller than, say, a very large undergraduate course. So I suppose it's easier for people in postgraduate courses to meet in person. So the plan is that we go back to in-person teaching, but like there could be variation in that. So I would say just like keep in touch with us as you make your decision, so that we have the most, I suppose, up-to-date advice on how it pertains to the individual course that you're looking at. And I know that for some people being online has been a huge positive. Like I know Lorcan, being based in a different part of Ireland, that's something that really enables you to do the course and stuff as well. So I know that might be kind of a game changer for some people that are based elsewhere in Ireland. So definitely just keep in touch with us, because it's hard to give a general answer that pertains to every single master's. So we've got another question here about work and organisational psychology. The kind of work experience that the course values or looks for. So this person is a recent business psychology graduate, and what kind of work experience does the course value or look for? We might already have answered that, Nuala, did we?
To be honest, I don't quite know the answer. I think I do know there's an interview process with the program coordinator, program chair. I think the aim is to populate the class with a diverse range of backgrounds so that there's no groupthink. I don't think we have very few people who are straight out of their undergrad degrees, and then a wide range of career lengths, anything from 5 to 30 or 40 years. So diversity, but I don't think I could advise on particular experience.
Yeah, I would say on this question, it's good to hear your perspective from being in the classroom, but I would say this is one for the program chair, who is Lisa van der Werf. I think she may be on holiday. I'm not positive, but if you get in touch with myself, I'll pop my email address into chat and I can help to find out the answer on that one for you to be exact. Investment, Treasury and Banking. So over to Aileen. Did you have a background in finance for your undergrad, and what would you advise someone who does not have a finance background?
So I have an undergrad in business studies, and I also work in finance as well. There definitely was people in the course that hadn't really any finance experience. We had a few engineers and other people who had an interest in maths, because the course is quite quant heavy. So I think there's about 6 modules that are it's sums, lots of Excels. Yeah, I can see them in my sleep. So like, I definitely wouldn't let that deter you at all, because in the first semester, the modules that are run are quite, not basic, but they give you kind of a background understanding, and then as the semesters move on, you're kind of building on that understanding. So if you don't have a background in finance, I would definitely still go for it if it was something you were interested in.
Yeah, I think in a situation like that, I would say talk to the program chair. In this case, that's Brian O'Kelly. If you can't find his email address online, come to us and we'll help you to find it, and we'll put you in touch. But Brian will be able to give a good sense, I think, of people that have done it in the past, and maybe even how to prep if you don't have that kind of, as we say, quantitative background. So worth a call with Brian on that one, I would say. Guys, we're at 10:02, so we're doing very well for time. If we've got any final questions from our audience, please do pop them into the old Q&A there or the chat, and we'll get to them. We will prioritize getting to questions rather than chit-chatting amongst ourselves. But I suppose in the interest of keeping it moving along, I might just kind of, if people have sort of concluding advice or anything maybe about your career and how you're thinking differently about things since you've done the masters, or any general advice for anyone who's thinking about doing it, might just go around the virtual room and cover that. So Laura, will we start with yourself?
Yeah, I was only thinking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think the biggest benefit for me, apart from the academic side of things, I've done a lot of things that I wouldn't usually get to do, like working in teams, trying to manage teams, presenting, skills that come along with that, which now going forward in an airline, applying for other jobs in, be it instructing or management positions, it's definitely going to benefit me. So as well as the academic side of things, there's definitely been other stuff that I've gained from it. Okay, that's great. That kind of rounded perspective maybe on the... Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not. And then those core skills, you know, that, as you say, I'm guessing as a pilot, you don't have to deal with a lot of PowerPoints and up and. No, I'd never done a presentation until I did the masters, so that was great experience. Be it virtually, it was still good. And you enjoy doing it? You know the way they say presenting is one of those things that lots of people are. Maybe that's why. Thing in life rather than talking in public. Well, you're on here and you're doing great this evening, so I think it must work. Thank you. Nuala, over to yourself, maybe.
I'd say if you think you want to do this, you will make it work, and it will be really, really good. I get learnings out of it every day, every week. I'm applying things directly into my job as we go. So it's worth it. And I'd say track your progress and celebrate your successes as you go as well. Because there's weeks you're in the thick of it, but you're always making progress and you're always able to apply this stuff. So definitely worth it.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. Thanks a million. Lord Con.
Yeah, no, I found it hugely beneficial, but I think it's that credibility. I think within work, you know, within meetings, I suppose dealing with managers, you have that bit more credibility, I think, when you have an MBA or you're sitting on an MBA, because they realize, I suppose, you're constantly engaging with managers, highly experienced, ambitious managers. And when you surround yourself with those type of people, you can't but, you know, develop and improve and become ambitious yourself. So you're constantly learning. So I would say the credibility aspect of it has been hugely positive.
No, I think that's a very important point, like that kind of confidence that comes with, well, I've gotten through an MBA and I've learned the huge information digest that's required for an MBA, and that you're sort of, I don't want to say there as an equal, but you know, you understand all of these business concepts really well by virtue of having done it, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's that broader perspective of how a business operates. So it's been, yeah, very interesting.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. Thanks a million. Aileen, what would be your advice?
Yeah, well, I definitely have seen the benefits of the masters, and I know that I will, like, it has opened and provided other opportunities for me that I probably wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't done it. I guess my biggest piece of advice, well, I think the one thing I will say, and that's building on Nuala's point, if you really want to do it, you'll make it all happen. You'll find that motivation, you'll get yourself up out of bed those few hours earlier, because at the end of the day, it is very rewarding. And yeah, I'm looking forward to graduating. Hopefully it'll be in person. And yeah, hopefully. And yeah, it'll be a good day. Happy to have it done, but it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And absolutely, like, learning is lifelong, you know, whether there are people out there that do multiple masters or that do lots of short CPD and those types of upskilling courses and stuff as well. So I suppose no matter what, whether it's a full master's, whether it's something shorter, the timing that you choose to do it is always going to be a factor, I guess. And it's down to that investment of time. But from what you guys are saying, that it appears to be very beneficial, and a worthy investment of your time and your energy. There is a question here on the Q&A. Aileen, it is for you. And the person is asking if you have seen a practical application of what you've learned on MITB to your day-to-day work in the central bank, and how it's deepened your knowledge and your skill set.
Yeah, I definitely have. There's a few reasons. So I specifically work on banking regulation policy. There's a full module on that at the start. And really, luckily, I actually had just moved on to that role at the time that I was doing the master's. So my learning really was sped up from the master's. But definitely, I know that there are other divisions within the bank that are literally full of people who have done the MITB previously. It's a really, really popular master's within the bank, and Brian O'Kelly, who is the chair of the course, is really highly regarded, and would frequently come into the central bank to consult on different items. So no, it's a really highly regarded master's within the bank, but also for me, within a lot of financial institutions in Dublin.
Yeah, there's a good range of people between different commercial banks, and then like yourself in like a regulatory body. There's a good mix of people in that class, right?
Oh yeah, and stockbrokers. We've a lot, like a very diverse range of people who are primarily in finance, but like I said, there were engineers, like some people who were very math focused also did it as well.
Okay, all right. Well, we're at 5:02. I don't see any more questions here in the Q&A or in the chat. So I'm going to take that everybody who has tuned in here this evening has had an answer to their question, and I hope has gained lots from listening to Aileen, to Laura, to Nuala, and to Lorcan about their time doing either the MBA or one of our executive masters. To the four of you, thank you so much for your time in doing this. It's hugely appreciated. And I know that by people that have tuned in that are thinking about a big decision like this, about whether or not to do a master's, I know that hearing from people like you that are currently doing it is really beneficial and important, just to kind of conceptualize what it might actually look like to do the master's, and then to navigate, I suppose, life as it continues to happen while you're doing it. So thanks a million for sharing all of your perspectives on it. I popped my email address there into the chat. So like, for people that have any specific questions, whether it's about how teaching is going to look, or whether it's because you've got a specific admissions question, or that you might have something that really needs to be answered by an academic or the program chair, I'm happy to be a point person on that for you to get in touch with me about. Really happy to be that person. So just bear me in mind if you have any questions. Thanks again to our panel. Really appreciate your time, and thanks to everyone who tuned in this evening.